Hello there, and welcome to Wandering Aimfully, the show. In this episode, we talk about co-mingling finances.
This is the first episode you've ever listened to / watch. I'm Jason. That's Caroline. If you're on YouTube, hello. If you're not on YouTube, I just waved. So
Hello.
just know that we're waving. And hello. Yes. So we talk about bringing all of our finances into one unit as a family.
Yes.
So that means getting rid of personal bank accounts, getting rid of personal budgets. How do you deal with those things? How do you deal with the power dynamic of a couple where one person may make more than another? We explore this.
What are the benefits of commingling your finances? What are the potential pitfalls? Why did we decide to do that? What was that journey like in the early days where we had separate bank accounts, but we were still paying for things together? And what were some of the roadblocks that we hit along the way? So we cover all of that. We answer some audience questions.
Heck yeah. And we just generally talk about our views on money, how it's changed over the years, and maybe how it can change for you if you're just not sure what you should be doing with your finances or budgets or anything. So we hope this episode is helpful. And as I would like to say, just to start this off, you should follow all of our advice to a T and not have any thoughts of your own.
No. Do not think critically about anything that we say. Do not have your own opinions. No. We take this all with a grain of salt. This is just how we kind of run our lives and why we do it that way. We hope it's interesting for you. We hope it gives you a unique perspective. And we hope that you can use the information to take what you will from it and apply it to your own life.
Hey there, we're Jason and Caroline Zook, a husband and wife team who believes life is just one big experiment.
This is the show where we share our journey as we figure out this ever-changing thing called life. We cover topics like running a business, traveling the world, and clawing our way out of debt, all with the hope of inspiring you to live, work, and create with more intention.
Life might bring its twists and turns, but when you know who you are and what you want, you're never really lost. Welcome to Wandering Aimfully, the show. Let's commingle those finances.
Whoa, how do you make that sound dirty?
Oh, did I?
Yes.
Wow.
You're like that episode of Friends where Joey's like,
This is not gonna land.
Grandma's chicken salad.
This doesn't land for me because I think I've seen one episode of
I
Friends,
know.
which was the Thanksgiving
guess
special where they
what?
played football.
Fine. That's a very popular episode, so
Okay.
you're pretty basic. But what I'm saying is, I don't care that you don't watch it. Some of our listeners do. And they're going to know exactly what I'm talking about.
12.
Grandma's chicken salad.
Do you want to do a little
Stop it. Co-mingling of finances. Jason watched one ASMR documentary and he thinks he knows like what is going on.
Okay, let's not go down that rabbit hole because that's
Great.
going to start a whole bundle of things. Let's get
Talk.
the elephant out of the room.
Get it out.
Go for it.
I had shingles.
Had?
I had.
Does
Well,
it-
everyone has it.
Right.
No, that's not
Herpes,
true. No, that's not true.
papilloma?
No. you're so
Pavlovian dog?
Pavlov's
Dog.
Yeah. You're so bad at this.
Yeah.
But
also good at it.
no, I didn't know what shingles was. And as it turns out, for those of you who don't know, when your immune system is suppressed and you are stressed out, if you had chickenpox when you were little, the virus that causes chickenpox basically says, cool, you're weak, you're dumb, you're stupid. Just kidding.
Wow, really?
Just kidding.
Really offensive.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's a very offensive virus. It's
Yeah.
very mean. Such a bully. No, it's like now I think this is a great time for me, the chickenpox virus, which is not whatever Jason said, is going to flare up again and it's going to cause a rash and it's going to cause debilitating nerve pain. And it usually shows up just in a cluster. So basically from like the back of my head down to my neck and my shoulder. Anyway,
This part of you here.
me,
Yeah.
this side. It takes a very long time to recover from this, which I was not aware of.
Right.
So when I got sick and I was down and out for like a week, I was like, this is fine. I'll take
This
some
has
meds.
nothing to do with co-mingling finances, but I
No,
just
no.
needed everyone to know in case you're like, I felt like Caroline was a little bit lower energy
Yeah.
in this episode or
That's
what
why
have you.
we're bringing it up
Yeah.
is that if you hear this and you're like,
But also the show must go on, you know?
I know, but if
The
I don't have
people
as-
want
it's
what
true.
the people want.
it's true. But if you don't hear as many jokes as I normally have, or if I'm constantly touching my shoulder because there's still a lot of pain, that's why.
Bummer.
Bummer.
Hey, would you mind doing me a favor and use the coaster for its intended purpose?
That's so Monica of you. I'm going to continue to make Friends references that you don't get.
Was there a Friends quiz that went around Facebook when like all
Oh,
the
I'm
quizzes were going
sure.
around? Yeah. So it's
You-
like, which character would you be?
You'd be a Monica.
Really?
100%.
Just type A.
Yeah,
Not Phoebe?
I'm a Phoebe.
You're a Phoebe. Who's Rachel in our Circle of friends.
I don't know that we have a Rachel.
Circle of friends.
Maybe I'm a Rachel.
friends.
I don't know. Comment below. Do you think I'm a Rachel or a Phoebe?
I think you're a Joey.
Maybe I'm a Chandler.
You're probably a Chandler. Yeah.
No.
All right, let's talk about commingling finances.
Okay.
Where do you want to begin?
I think, so to be completely honest, to give the people at home an idea of where we're starting.
How much money we have in our bank account?
Yeah. It's
$16.
Since we totally and completely broke down all the walls between all of our accounts, so totally commingled finances, it's been about, what would you say, 5 or 6 years now?
Yeah, I think
5 years?
We started dating. We had separate accounts. We committed to being together. We decided we were going to be together.
Don't start at the beginning. That's where I do want to start, but I just want to give.
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to like get caught up. And then
Okay.
it's like you moved in with me, and then you started working for me, and then I actually think it was after I Wear Your Shirt.
No, because remember, I was still getting the Better Lettering course sales in my bank account, and that was a big point of contention.
Right, but I'm saying it was after I Wear Your Shirt.
Well,
So it was after
certainly.
2013. I'm just having a timeline here.
No, I know. You're just going about it the reverse way that I wanted you to. I had a very clear
Well, if
idea.
that's not a relationship
I was trying to
problem,
pitch it
I
up
don't
to you
know
the
what
way
it
that I
is.
wanted you to do it, and you did it the opposite way. So
I just want to let everyone know at home. Questionable if we're going to keep this
No,
on.
no
through this.
way.
No.
It's
But I do
forever.
think that's a really interesting
a diamond
aside.
is forever, first of all.
A diamond is forever, just like you. That is a really interesting thing, though, is that finances can tear a relationship apart. Big time.
What brought you there?
Because I took the ring off.
Oh, so that was your segue.
Metaphor.
It's true.
Metaphor.
If you're not on the same page, it can be hard. So that's actually why we wanted to do this episode, because I
Yeah.
think we've landed now, later on in our relationship, at a place where I think have a very healthy relationship with our finances and as a family unit, but it wasn't always that way.
Going back to your initial question,
Yes.
I believe we've been commingling finances for 4 years.
Okay.
I believe.
That is what I wanted to say. So the whole point of me pointing that out is that I would love to go back and try to remember what it was like before we did that, and what those conversations were like, and what those hesitations were, and what some of those points of conflict were. And because one thing I've noticed from talking to people, even our age, people that are married, everybody has their own way they set it up. People have separate accounts and they have different responsibilities. People have completely together accounts. People have one account that's a joint account and they have their own accounts. We have all the same accounts. So
Do you want to start at where we are now, or do you want to go back to the beginning?
no, we can
and then
start
we'll
with
get
where we
there?
are now.
Okay. So where we are now is we have one main joint household checking account. It's just a normal checking account. I have a business account for my main business, which is like the overarching thing. It's an S corporation. So that has its own business checking account. You have a business checking account for your main overarching business thing, which is Made Vibrant. Mine's a really awesome company incorporated, by the way. So we have those 3 accounts that are basically our main accounts. So like money comes into the business accounts, it gets funneled into the household account, and then the household account essentially pays things for living expenses and whatever. And then our business expenses all get paid on credit cards, and then we pay those credit cards off with our business accounts.
At the end of the month.
Every week.
Every week.
Yeah.
But
So that's the structure of our accounts. And then we also have an external savings account that is not related, because those 3 are in Wells Fargo, unfortunately. Then they're linked, essentially.
Yes.
The other one is completely outside, completely separate bank. And the reason for that is purposeful, because we learned that you needed to have it completely separate so you don't see that money as available money.
Totally. A couple things I want to point out as caveats in all of that. Yes, we have a joint account and then individual business bank accounts. However, the business bank accounts really only exist as an entity to catch the income. So
Right.
like sales and money that people pay us flow into the business account for accounting purposes. However, we don't think of those as like I don't think of my Made Vibrant business account as like
personal.
my personal
Right.
account that I'm going to spend my own money on. Any type of personal expenses that we have they get put on a credit card, but they get paid out through our joint household account. So quite literally, our money is completely shared.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And now we're to the place where a lot of our even business ventures, especially with Wandering Aimfully, are joint ventures. So at some point we will consolidate and have a joint business account. But for right now, it's fine. They go through my bank account or my business account, which it doesn't matter because it all flows into one account. So we are under that works for us. because
Well, and also needs to work for everyone who's listening to this.
you have to do it our way, is what we're saying.
Yeah, if you listen to
This
this
is
show,
why
then
you're
you've
listening to the
opted
show.
in
You're
to
like,
change your entire life.
we're going to be Jason
based
and
on
Caroline.
exactly what
Very
these
good.
two idiots on the internet are doing.
That's right.
One idiot and one nice person.
Very good.
I didn't mean to call you an idiot. I apologize.
We started it indirectly, so I'm going to let you off the hook on that one. And also, whatever, if you're an idiot, I'm an idiot. You know, it's like an adaptation of The Notebook.
Watch this.
Like, you're a bird,
Watch
I'm a
this.
bird. You
I'm
put
going
it back
close-up
on.
camera. Oh, it's kind of hard to like do it backward. Here you go, everybody.
She's back in, folks.
Bing.
Bing. God, it's so romantic, isn't it? If you're an idiot, I'm an idiot. Okay, so, but the reason, why does that work for us? Or how did we come to that agreement?
So I think that this all started when, we got serious in our relationship. We were committed to each other. We were dabbling with the conversation of marriage. Whoa.
Wait, before you go there, I just had a flashback where I was like,
You can put your arm down now.
oh, what did we do in the beginning when we first started dating? Like, did we alternate paying for like meals? Do you even remember?
Yeah, I think for the majority of it, I paid for the bulk of things, but also because you had like a first job out of college,
That's
you didn't
true.
have a lot of money, and I did have more money, so it just was easier.
But
And
did we talk about that?
That's because if I had
When you
money,
could.
yeah, it just made me feel really good, and it wasn't
that's
like
true. It was a weird-
I want to look rich. Like that wasn't it. It was like I just want to take care of my peeps. That's all I want to do. I was gonna say people,
peeps.
and I was gonna say peeps, and then it came out peep.
My peeps.
Yeah.
That's true. So it was kind of a unique situation because it was the height of I Wear Your Shirt. We first started dating, so you were doing very well financially. I mean, you were accumulating debt, but whatever.
Not at that time.
Not at
I
that
wasn't,
time.
but
Not
yeah.
when we first started dating. Then when I got into the picture, the debt,
Yeah, yeah.
But, and I sort of had an entry level job. So I guess you did pay for a lot of stuff.
But I think to answer your question, I think like if you were going to go to Target or whatever,
Yeah.
you would just pay for it out of your personal
Right.
account. And then if I was going to go, wherever I was going to go to do something, I would pay for it out of my personal account and everything.
And then if it was joint stuff.
And then if we went to like a restaurant together,
Yeah.
I probably paid for it. And then there were probably some things where it's like we go to Starbucks and like you would pay for it because it was
Right.
less money. So it was
Totally.
easier that
So
way.
we did do that.
Yeah.
And that was another thing I was going to bring up is that's a perfect example because like I would pay for the Starbucks knowing that it was so much less than whatever you paid for. But in those early days, I remember when things were separate, I remember very much being aware of the sort of imbalance of power. Like, and maybe you didn't feel that being the person that paid for stuff, but like as the person who had less money and was not contributing as much financially to the team, I remember feeling like a chip on my shoulder about that, like, oh,
Well, you should have made more money.
right. That's obviously
It's obviously well, and I think it's fair to say, because I know this about myself, like never once did I ever put that on you as a real thing.
You didn't put that on me, but
here we go.
no, you didn't put that on me. However, I will say that, and maybe this goes into not just commingling finances, but like the power dynamic in a relationship with when it comes to money. But I remember in those days, especially when I started Made Vibrant and I was making $0, that you felt the weight and the financial pressure of carrying the family and the financial burden. And I think that's an interesting thing to dig into because in even talks with friends and things like that, I often can see where if there's one person who is like the quote unquote breadwinner, it's not that there's like a resentment. It's not that it's unhealthy. It's just there's a higher level of responsibility and pressure that I think the person who makes the more money feels.
Right. And yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of like societal things that go into this. There's
Yeah.
a lot of like
Gender dynamics.
dynamics that go into this. And for me personally, it was never about any of that stuff. It was just the acknowledgement of like, I have more money and we're going to do things. So like, I'll just pay for it and that's fine. And I actually don't ever remember a time, probably except right when I Wear Your Shirt shut down, Made Vibrant was just getting started. We both had no idea really what we were going to do to make money. That's mostly when I felt our personal pressure of carrying the finances.
Yes.
Before that, like literally right before that in 2012, I was feeling the pressure of carrying finances for a company of
Yeah.
7 people and $30,000 in salaries a month. And that was a lot of pressure for me, but that was different because it wasn't just you and me. It didn't involve just us.
It's also important to note here that when I was working for I Wear a Shirt, it was a little bit silly because you were
Right.
paying me.
Right.
So like you were making.
Yeah, but
so
tax
like,
write-off, you know?
but like
it
think
was
about
independent
just think about
contractor.
how weird this is for a second, guys. There was a period of time, 1.5 years or 2 years, where you're paying me every month.
Yeah.
So if I do go to Starbucks, but not very much, because that was part of our deal. I was like, you don't have to pay me a lot. I wasn't paying rent. I was
Yeah.
living with you, whatever. You were paying the mortgage, but part of that was
You were
like
doing the laundry.
you're paying me for work that I did, working very hard, but still there was a part of me that's like, if I go to Starbucks and I pay for this coffee for both of us, it's coming out of money that you essentially did give me. And yes, I know that I contributed to that.
And you earned that money.
And I earned that money,
Right.
but it was a little bit of a silly cyclical thing that just was like, wouldn't it make more sense to just like keep it all in one pot and pay for stuff out of that?
Yeah.
But I will say this, in those early years, I think you'd agree, there was an evolution that I had to go through as a young woman trying to have a career and grow up and be an adult, where I wanted to prove that I could make my own money and that I was, had my own kind of deal. So when Made Vibrant did start to pick up, I remember this was a little bit of the catch-22 thing, where then I start seeing sales come into Made Vibrant's bank account, and then I don't want to mingle finances.
Because then you had...
Because it felt so good to be making my own money and feeling independent and feeling, successful.
I know how I felt all the time.
Really good.
I had all the... No,
I'm just kidding.
Well, and I do think it's really interesting just looking back on that time frame of our lives when our finances weren't commingled. And I think you were kind of getting to this question of like, what did we do? Like, what did we do? And I think it's probably what a lot of people who are in relationships that may be listening to this or watching this or what have you, that they just kind of just do random stuff.
They wing it.
Yeah, you just are like, well, I've got
You
my
pay for
money
these
and
groceries.
whatever, and you've got some of this, and then, and I think, truthfully, this is my honest feeling. This is why I really want to talk about this in this episode. Is that I do feel like commingling finances is such an important step in a commitment of a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Like to me, if I hear of a couple, and I don't mean this as a broad generalization, I just mean this as like how I feel. It's not necessarily true, obviously, but that if a couple is like, yeah, we're married, but we have separate bank accounts. To me, that's a red flag. I'm like, that's only going to lead to some type of trouble or some type of problem down the road.
I don't agree.
Well, obviously, that's the point of us having a show.
I know, but I understand why you feel that way, and I get where you're coming from, which is because here's the thing that people probably know by now if they've listened to any other episodes of this show.
Okay. But if they haven't, this is a new person.
This is a new person.
What's up, new person? How you doing? Did you leave a rating review on iTunes? Thanks.
Your brain, the way that you work and the way that your personality works, like only traffics in honesty.
Right.
And radical transparency.
Right.
Like your brain does not understand why there would ever be any reason to not be radically transparent.
Right.
So I get that's where you're coming from, and that works for us. So you're like, why wouldn't it work for other people? However, I can see how there is a level of independence that you retain by having your own bank account, because you get to listen to this scenario.
Hold on one second.
I know what you're going to say,
What am
but
I
I want to say
What am I
it.
going to say?
I'm going to give a scenario, and I know exactly what your rebuttal is. Can I pretend to be you?
Sure, go for it. You got to do my voice though, and you got
Okay, so this is me, Caroline.
This is you, yeah.
Saying the scenario is like, okay, I have my own bank account and I want to go get my nails done. Okay. And maybe we had just had a conversation, and like we don't have a ton of money, but it would really make me feel good to go get my nails done, and I've decided that that's how I want to spend my money in my bank account. I go get my nails done. I don't tell you. That's an indulgence that I get to have free of judgment, because I know that if I tell you, you're going to go, oh, you got your nails done and blah, blah, blah. This is not something you would actually do. I'm just saying in this scenario, it's a husband and wife, and they've had this conversation before, and she knows the husband's going to be like, oh, the nails. Well, can I go to Home Depot and I don't know.
A bunch of work lights? I just want like a lot of work lights.
And get my nails done. Get my nails done. At Home Depot, get my nails. Okay. Didn't land. I got it. So that's the scenario, right? And then I say that. And then Jason comes in and he's like, yeah, but she's not being honest with her husband. And wouldn't you say that if she's afraid of her husband judging her, that's a bigger issue. Red flag, red flag.
Well, also, so yes to that. But the other thing that I was actually going to say, that's true. But the other thing is like, let's say it's marriage or just we're committed to each other for life. If you're just like, hey, we're partners for life, we've committed to that. Now, if you're before that stage, then I get it. There's a lot of ambiguity. You don't know what's going on. But if you've committed, if you're married, and that's what I brought up was my like, this
or
is my
spiritually
thing.
married.
Or spiritually married, yeah, whatever it is. And you essentially say to that other person, till death do us part, we're better together, like everything is better as one person, one group unit, whatever. Then you don't need a personal bank account. There is no more of you having a personal bank account. That's not what you're opting in for. That's not what you're literally making a commitment for.
Well, then I would say, as devil's advocate to that, this is not my actual position, but I love disagreeing with you.
Again, the point of this show.
Yeah. But when I hear you say that, my devil's advocate to that would be, okay, but the point of a marriage is not to become one person. The point of a marriage is to be individuals and to retain your individual soul and your personality and your personhood.
You haven't told me any of this. You've been keeping this from me.
We're supposed to become one person. Have you been trying to be one person this whole time?
I've been trying to be more emotional.
No,
I've been taking care of my hair a lot more.
Oh, babe, your hair looks so good.
I've been doing it every couple days. My hair.
So that's my argument, is that in a marriage, you're an individual and then you're something together.
But to me, and I think it's a good point, but my rebuttal to your rebuttal of my initial fictitious rebuttal is that being an individual person doesn't mean having your own bank account and like you can be making spending decisions on your own.
Well, this is where it comes full circle, because this is where I still very much agree with our position, but I just see it differently than you, which is not to freaking judge other people for what they do, but just to say this is why we do the way that we do, which is that I love the ability, like, first of all, I love being a team. Like, I love that mentality of like...
It's so much easier to win with a teammate.
It is. And
in this game of life.
And this thing happens where when it all goes into the same pot, you do just sort of, you stop keeping score.
Yeah.
Because you just go, it's all in the same pot.
Well, you actually do keeping score, but it's a score together. So then you both feel like you're contributing to the overall score, as opposed to having two separate scores and then like this kind of like nebulous score in the middle.
The score is just what can you achieve together.
How many zeros can we get in our bank account?
All the figs.
3.
So I love that about it. And I also was going to say that the reason I love it is for the reason...
reason you love what specifically?
That combining everything.
Okay, gotcha.
Is for the reason that you brought up fictitiously, that I brought up, that you brought up.
Yeah.
Which is that it forces you to be overly communicative about your purchases, about your wants, about your needs, about how you're feeling. Like in my fictional scenario, the way that it goes differently in the way that we have our finances set up.
Hello, train.
There's the train. Is I say, hey, I know that we just talked about this at our weekly budget meeting, which we do, which we'll talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Jason, I know we just talked about this at our weekly budget meeting, that we don't have a ton of money for like discretionary things, but I am feeling so just like depleted right now, and I need a little bit of self-care, and I think getting my nails done would make me feel relaxed and joyful, and I would love, and it's not in that conversation like I'm asking for permission.
Right.
It's just that I'm communicating why I'm going to make this choice. And then it forces you to like, even if you may in your heart be like, oh, we just had this conversation, I don't want to spend this money on this thing, we're trying to save up, whatever the things may be, you know why I'm doing it. And you're like, of course you want your wife to be happy and like take care of herself and feel good. And so in that moment, it offers us an opportunity to like understand where each other are at.
Yeah, and I think
that is not correct grammar, but you know what I'm saying.
No, I think it becomes so. There's an interesting like side
hustle,
like a sideshow of the commingling of finances, and that sideshow is the weekly budget meeting that you've talked about.
Yeah.
And what I think is really important is that in having a budget meeting more than once a month or once a quarter, like a very active budget meeting, which we do every single Friday.
A very structured budget meeting.
Very structured budget meeting. But if you start with the budget meeting, so if you start with setting up the categories of spending that you have, if you start with saying, here are the things that we spend money on, here are the things that we value, here are the things that we are going to continue to spend money on.
Or save for, or
Here's what happens is you have conversations about things like self-care. And you go, hey, I'm being you in this scenario. Hi, I sometimes feel a little overwhelmed, but it's not that often. It's like every 3 months.
Am I a Muppet?
And, sometimes I feel.
Okay, it's going to stop.
I feel better.
It's going to a Muppet place.
Carol.
Oh my God, it's going. Am I Kermit?
Sometimes I like getting my nails done, and I just want to get them done, like when I want, and not to be judged for it. For anybody listening to that, not watching this, that was just an adventure in there. They're like, what happened?
The way.
Yeah.
The look on your face was such a little kid of just so proud of yourself.
Well, that I can do multiple Muppet variations.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Aside.
Let's come back around here. So starting the budget meeting. So what you do is, instead of getting to a place where you go, okay, we're commingling our finances, we have one joint bank account, we're getting rid of our personal accounts, and now we have these weird conversations that come up about going to get my nails done. You go, we're going to do a joint bank account, we're going to do this, but first, we're going to set up a budget. And we are going to talk about all of our expenses, and the best way to do this is to basically go through your credit cards, go through your bank account, put all your expenses in a spreadsheet, go over them all together, one by one, line by line, and discuss with each other, hey, is this something we need to keep spending money on? Is this something we need to prioritize for? And so for us, something like getting your nails done, we basically have a health and self-care budget, which is essentially, I think, like $500 a month, because it includes
it includes our gym memberships and
includes
stuff
our gym membership and stuff like that. But there is room in there for getting the nails done. And truthfully, it's like going to the spa every 6 months, I think is what it is. Like, that's why it's $500 a month, because you get a spa and there's like a little bit more expensive. But when you do that, so then when the conversation about the nails come up, it's so much less friction. It's so much less judgment.
Because you've already set the rules together.
Already set the rules together. Now, I will say that you're never going to catch all of the things.
Right.
So you're going to come up with some stuff that's like, hey, we didn't talk about this in the budget. And how that comes up is, instead of having your own account and you kind of sneak off and you buy this thing and then you come back and then you have like an awkward conversation of like, well, why'd you go and do that? Like, it's not in our budget. We didn't talk about it. You come to the person first and you have that conversation. You go, hey, in our health and whatever budget, like we have about $100 extra every month. I really want to go and get like upside down facial. And I'd be like, wow, what is that?
That sounds like Urban Dictionary type stuff, babe. I hate to tell you, but the second it came out of your mouth, I was like,
don't look it up.
I don't think so.
Also, this lighting is going to be wonderful.
You're going to hate it.
Just cloud cover for days.
Guys, if the colors look weird, it's because Jace had a hard time color correcting.
It was perfectly clear when we started recording. Now it's overcast.
Anyway,
it doesn't matter for the podcast listeners.
Do you have a finishing thought? Because I have a thought.
Yes. So my finishing thought is, before you even start the conversation of commingling finances, when you're going down that path, one of the most important things you can do is set a budget.
Yeah.
And go through the exercise of downloading all your expenses from your credit cards, from your banks, look at everything together, create an average spend over the past 3 months of categories of things. And you can come up with those on your own because they're going to be different for everyone. But include some of that stuff that's a little bit more of, gluttonous is not the right word, but it's like indulgent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Of stuff that's like, yeah, I don't need this every month.
And what I characterize as indulgence is stuff that brings you just pure joy. That's not practical.
Right. And it's also something that you don't like. You get your nails done once every 4 months. Like, it's not like an every week thing. It's not an every month thing.
But if it was and we decided that it was in the budget, that'd be fine.
And if there was, and I think that's where we really, and we'll get into this, but it's you really start to talk about some of these things that you're spending money on and going, but do you actually need to do that every month?
Right. Okay, so the other thing that I want to bring up to you, though, because as you're saying that, I'm thinking to myself, but what if you as a couple have just decided that you both have personal bank accounts that you keep, $100 in or whatever, and that's almost like your budget for your own discretionary spending, and you just want to be able to have that without explaining it to anyone.
Yeah, I just don't think it's necessary. I mean, I understand the...
Can you understand how that would work for some people?
I understand the theory of it. I just think that keeping money separate from someone else's view or feeling like you have to keep it to yourself...
I guess the answer there, too, is that the bigger problem is, why do you feel judged?
Right. And if you're not having the conversations to actually go through those things and understand, like, why do you need why do you need $100 on the side to go and spend without my judgment? Because the bigger conversation there is, why am I judging you? Like,
Right.
You know, so it's like, is that something that's wrong with me? Is
Right.
it something that's wrong with you? Is it something we need to discuss together?
Not something that's wrong with you, just something
It's just something
worth
that needs
exploring.
to be discussed.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Language
so,
matters. Okay,
yes.
wait, can I bring up another point?
Yes, gosh, train again. You got to salute it every time. Man, this is just a
Do you-
real.
I think you salute right hand or left hand. Do you know?
Well, it depends on what
Google
hand
that
you
for
are.
you.
It depends on what hand you are.
No, it doesn't. Does it?
What? Anyway,
Okay.
go on.
Another thing that I really want to talk about, though, that I think is worth mentioning, that we sometimes take for granted, is a little bit of the power dynamic that I was telling you about, where the period of time where I was bringing in significantly less money than you were. And you were so great, which was that you never held it over my head. You never made me feel like, for instance, I could see how if our finances were separate at that time and I wanted to get my nails done, or no, if they were together at that time and I wanted to get my nails done and I'm contributing basically nothing to our household and you're contributing everything, I could see how you could be like, that's my money and you're going to go spend it on nails, and that could create an issue. You never did that. You really had this mentality that was like, the second that it's in our bank account, it's ours and we're going to, you know, make decisions together. And I really appreciated that, because it could have caused a lot of friction in our relationship to feel constantly like I was in your debt or something like that.
But I think that's the point of it. Thank you, by the way. But I think that's the point of a committed relationship. Like, that's the thing that blows my mind.
Yeah.
When people are like, oh, we can't commingle finances. Like, it would be a nightmare. Like, what do you mean it would be a nightmare? Aren't you guys in this together? Like, it doesn't matter if one person makes $0 and the other person makes $100,000 a year, or whatever the number is. You're together. So
Plus,
it's
yeah,
all,
you picked that person not because of the financial gain that they were
unless you
going
picked him because of the financial gain.
Maybe you did, but I think to your point, the way maybe around that, if you're somebody who is the breadwinner and you're having a hard time feeling like this other person is not bringing much to the relationship, trying to view it like you picked this person to spend your life with because they had all these qualities that you felt brought value to your life, you know, that you enjoyed spending time with them. And so maybe their contribution is not financial,
right?
But it's in
But
all these
also,
other ways.
That's a discussion that you have to have as a couple.
True.
Like, and it's a conversation.
Oh God,
ridiculous.
you hate it.
This is sorry for podcast listeners. The lighting is just a mess today.
Gnarly.
And this may be a very distracting episode with all these things that I can't not talk about because
I know.
I'm so honest.
Side note, because I'm hurting, I'm slowly like
Slumping.
devolving into like a troll.
So you got to keep looking at yourself and untroll.
I know.
You gotta untroll.
So if you're watching, you're getting the visual of me untrolling myself.
Untrolling. No, what I was going to say is I just feel like there's a much bigger problem at hand in relationships where if money is not something that you can just see as this is just a part of our relationship. It's not a determining factor of who's better or
Right.
who's more important.
It's not the currency with which you judge each other.
It's literally a societal thing that we have all made up, and we've agreed that we've moved on from beaver pelts, and now we're at dollars in our bank account, and it's
Beaver
just
pelts.
digits on a screen, and
Yeah.
yet it causes so much strife and controversy. And that's not to say that we don't run into that a little bit here and there, but I think compared to the majority of people, not that I have all the data to back this up, but I just have an inherent feeling about it because you hear other conversations of other people. I mean, we have almost no arguments about money ever.
Sure.
And I really firmly believe it's because we set a standard up front of what it means. We're in this together. We're not keeping score.
And we just make every decision together.
Right.
And we just view it through that radical like honesty that I was talking about. We did for a while have this rule. So going back to the feeling free to make your own decisions, we did for a while have this rule. Do you remember where it was like anything over $100 we would consult each other on, but anything under you could just like, if I see a cool new marker set on Amazon and I want to buy it, I can buy it.
You buy the most frivolous stuff.
Marker set.
Yeah.
But we don't really adhere to that. We just sort of, because
I think it's more along the lines of, so, and this is just when you're in a relationship
I guess maybe
longer.
we do.
I mean, I just think when you're in a relationship longer, you get into habits, you get into like certain things. And I think it also has so much to do with the mindset of enough.
Yeah.
We're at this place where we don't need fancy jewelry.
Right. And
We
we're
don't
not buying a lot of stuff.
I don't need a new pair of shoes all the time when they come out. Like, sure, I like seeing the new pair of LeBrons or whatever, but like, I just don't need them. Like,
Yeah.
I don't play basketball anymore. Like, it'd just be weird for me to buy them. But I think there's so much stuff in relationships in general where when you don't establish that enough thing together, people get stuck and they're like, yeah, but I want to have this and I don't have this. So I'm going to go get it. And now that our money's together, you're going to judge me if I get it. It's like, no, the root of the problem there is that you have not decided together what it is that's enough for you to be happy.
Right.
In which case you keep trying to fill that void with stuff. And this is the like, money doesn't buy happiness. This is a very clear example of that phrase. Whereas when you are in it together, when you understand the things that you spend money on on an average basis, then there's no real surprises. And then when there are surprises, when there are things like a marker set that comes out that's just like, ooh la la, $16 on Amazon. I think what happens with us and what we've evolved to as a couple is we just bring it up to the other person. And we're just like, hey babe, I'm going to grab a couple things on Amazon. It's this, this, and this. And I don't even think it's brought up as I have to back up my decision.
Right.
As much as it's just to be honest with the other person of like, I don't want you to see this and see there's a surprise, like I hit it. I'm just letting you know that.
Right.
Like,
it's never asking for permission. It's just communicating.
Right.
So that's important. I think also it's really important if you're in a relationship, like I don't think we did this on purpose, but I think it was something valuable that happened over time. If you're in a relationship with someone who has very different perspective on money than you do, to find some sort of common ground and communicate about that rather than constantly being in battle with each other. Because when we met, we did have very different sort of approaches to money. Whereas you were very good at recognizing that money can bring you great experiences and things are worth spending money on. And I was like pinching every penny.
And that you're always going to make more money.
Right. You had like very much an abundance mindset. And I had very much a scarcity mindset of like, save it all. Don't spend money on anything. Like buy the cheapest stuff. And then I would, this is, I think, the weird reverse psychology thing of when you don't have a lot of money, you sacrifice so much and you hold so much to the chest that then you'll go on like, a shopping spree at like a discount place like TJ Maxx or something. And you end up spending hundreds of dollars that way because you're depriving yourself versus if you would spread that out a little bit more and just have more of an abundance mindset and be okay with letting some of that go, eating at a nicer place or spending money on a trip or something like that. You're not constantly in this place where you feel deprived. Yeah. But it's very important, I feel, in a relationship to talk about that stuff and to come to some sort of joint agreement on when you want to spend money, I think that's the values conversation, right? Yeah. What is worth spending money on? Like we as a couple value travel. We as a couple don't value things. Yep. We would rather spend more money on a trip than on shopping. So we're going to, even if we want the cool new this that we see, we're going to talk it out and be like, ultimately we don't need that, you know?
What's the cool new this?
Marker set.
It's cool new marker set.
Just kidding. Yeah, I was thinking like a coat.
It's just like a coat.
Because it's fall. It's like a cool
Remember when I bought
coat.
my previous girlfriend the same coat from a birthday to a Christmas?
You were a gem before I met you.
I'm also a good gift giver. I think in general, I'm a pretty good gift giver.
You think she liked it twice?
I don't know.
I don't think she liked it 2 times as much.
Whoopsies. That was not meant to be.
That's like a classic I screwed up boyfriend move.
Yeah, and I don't think I have a lot of the. I mean, especially in gift giving, I don't have those. But that's where you realize you're not with the right person. Do you want to take a question?
That was the
question from the audience. I think we have a lot more we want to talk about with this, but maybe this will lead into some of the places we're going to go anyway.
Well, I think we already talked about this a little bit, but I just wanted to kind of put a nice bow on it. By Melissa Claire asked us.
Hold on.
What?
Hello, Melissa.
Hi, Melissa.
Also, thanks for being a Wandering Aimfully member. You're awesome.
By Melissa Claire. Is maintaining your own sense of financial independence important for you? And I guess our answer is no.
Not anymore. And honestly, I think for me, when we started dating, when we started to like, especially when you started working for me, and it was just like funneling money, like
around.
It was almost like an offshore banking scheme I was running, you know, just
onshore.
But I got no benefits.
It was onshore,
financially
taxed.
I got relationship benefits.
Well, sure,
certainly.
Starbucks,
really.
Starbucks.
But no, I think that for me, it never really mattered. Like as we started to get like working together, like the thing that especially is where we've gotten today. So fast forward a couple years beyond that. I just feel so good that we're working on the same things together and it's all going into one pot and that pot is benefiting our livelihoods.
Yeah. And I would say that it was harder for me because for a long time I equated financial independence. I think women, we have this thing, right? Where like our moms taught us, like at least my mom did, growing up, it was like, don't rely on a man. Like, because that was
My
their.
mom said the same thing.
That was the exactly. Don't you rely on a man? But their generation, like, I think that was a little bit of the culture of that generation, which was like, you're the wife and blah blah blah. And so there was this like backlash for that, where my mom like being divorced and stuff, and was like, don't put all your eggs in this basket. Like, you need to be financially independent, a strong independent woman. Cue the song or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, my honey. Anyway.
Nice.
And so I had this like mindset that once I started to make money with Made Vibrant, I had such a hard time letting go of keeping that separate. And really, because I still have that bank account, but it was really about just transferring money out of that. And I had such a hard time doing that, because for me, it represented being a successful business person, like being able to do that on my own. And we had so many discussions where you were like, why are you measuring your like worth as a entrepreneur or your worth as a person on this number that you see in a bank account?
Right.
Like, why is it not by the livelihood that you're able to live with me together because of that business, And so to answer the question, I think it was important for me at a time, but slowly but surely I was able to let go of that and recognize that, to what you said, which is, as long as we're contributing to a livelihood as a team together,
It's all that matters.
It's all that matters. We both benefit.
Yeah. Good question, Melissa.
Great
We appreciate
question.
it. All right. Keep going with questions.
another one?
Yeah, sure.
I like this one a lot because we've talked a little bit about dating in the beginning, but at a Wildflowers Journey,
Hello.
says, how do you prepare when you're single? So what questions are good to ask when you're like in the dating phase? How to bring that up to make sure that that person's on the same page.
So far removed from this.
From dating?
Do you
even remember?
You got a Bumble Tinder. That's all I know.
A Bumble Tinder.
Okay. Those are two separate dating apps.
Yes, they are.
Right? Yeah.
But I think she brings up a good point, and I think obviously if you're going to ask like some of the hard-hitting questions right in the beginning, you're going to freak people out.
Yeah.
But I would say to pay attention to some of those moments, like the who's getting the bill conversations and that type of thing, or use that as maybe an opportunity to kind of talk about it.
Yeah, I think it's also just important to find out if your values align early on. So you can ask things like, "Hey, what are your goals? Like, what do you want to be doing? Do you have financial goals?" And if you start, like, okay, I'll be the woman in this relationship, and then I'll also be the man in this potential relationship, and you're on a date,
woman and woman,
or
man
woman
and
woman, or man and man, or person and person, or dog and dog, or goldfish and goldfish. Those are all the things. It's like, hey, I'm the woman, and I'm like, hey, what do you see yourself doing work-wise? Like, do you have financial goals you're trying to hit? And the guy's like, yeah, I want to be making 10 mil a year, and then I want to be retired by 45, owning 16 Ferraris.
Cool.
And very quickly, as the woman or the other person, you're like, and you just want to leave immediately, which is great for you to know early on because you don't run into that later on. But I do think in the very far-fetched version of my explanation of that, it's just important to have those conversations, because if one person is seeking so much more and constant abundance of money and self-worth with money, and you're not that person, you don't have those things, that's going to cause so much trouble. And also, even if you are, it's also going to cause trouble. What's
funny about that, though, is that you basically did like a very, very extreme caricature of like what you were kind of like when we first started dating.
Oh no, for sure, 100%. And I think that's most men.
It is
in society.
But this is why I'm bringing this up, because it's not like you hear something like that and maybe their values don't align with yours, and you're like, on to the next Bumble Tinder.
But if it's that far, though.
Of course, if it's that far. But I'm saying,
I just want to
saying, if you're not on the same page in the early days, my caveat is to make sure if that person is open-minded, if that person is open to growth, because we were on opposite ends of the spectrum in so many ways when we first started dating, but we had this bridge of like same sense of humor and same like creativity and wanting to be around each other, and like ultimately this desire to grow. And as long as you have that and like a commitment to becoming a better person, there's hope that like you can find common ground.
Yeah, and I think that it boils down to like our real example is I wanted $1 million in my bank account, and we just had conversations of like, why?
Yeah,
and a lot of it was because MTV Cribs. Seriously, like
MTV Cribs,
societal pressures for me were like, that's what is important to me.
Right.
Like, I want to make $100,000 a year because a doctor.
That's
a lawyer.
how you get accepted.
Right, and it's like, no, that's not at all what's important. What's important is you do work that you really like and you live a life that you really like and you make enough money for the lifestyle that you actually want and care about, not that you believe you should have because someone else told you that. And so I think, yeah, my fictitious example that's so far off, but in my personal example, we had conversations a lot early on where it was just like, but why do we need that?
Yeah.
And like, what do we have to sacrifice if we were going to try to get that? That's not worth it. To do those things.
Right.
And that's really where I think we came together. And then I think that's really where kind of the spark of our finances coming together, our goals coming together.
Yeah.
And this keeping score is one unit of the household.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say is to look out for, I think those very generalized, overly traditional gender roles too, of like,
Absolutely.
if you think that, you know, I'm the guy and I'm supposed to bring in all the money and you're like those types of like rigid rules and things. Like I think anytime that you can look for a partner who wants a partnership, truly, I think that's only going to benefit you down the road. I think those are the relationships that last.
And I will just say, if you are financially driven and you have reasons to be financially driven and there are certain goals that you want and you can find someone who has similar drive as you, cool, that's fine too. Like, I'm not saying that everyone has to be like completely
live in a yurt.
Yeah, like you don't have to sacrifice everything. You don't have to not make money. We like making money. Making money is great. It's helpful. It provides a life
We go
that
to
we
the
like.
spa every couple months. And we're not going to apologize for it.
But again, it's just trying to align your values. So it was a good question. I do like the way that
Great question.
you kind of brought some thoughts up for us.
Yeah, there was one more thing I was going to say, but I forgot, so it wasn't that good. Okay, so we have another question that we kind of already went over, but Katie Linder.
Shout out Katie Linder,
Another
Wandering Aimfully member. Hello, Katie.
Said, what are the pros and cons of commingling finances?
I think it's fair to say we don't find that there's any cons.
I would agree with that.
All right, pros. Go back and forth?
Sure.
All right.
Opportunity to talk honestly about your values.
Boring. Single credit cards for maximum travel reward points.
Great point, babe.
Thank you.
A more balanced power dynamic.
You can attack bigger goals financially together as opposed to separately, which takes longer.
Great point.
Thank you. Your points are also great. I'm just not going to say great
No
point.
arguing or thinking over who pays for what.
Yeah, that's a good one. Much easier, like budget meetings and tax things at the end of the year.
Yeah, these are all good points. Okay, that's it.
All right, last one. That was good. Okay, cool. So thank you, Katie, for that. Let's go. We have 2 more questions, and then we'll wrap this commingling thing up.
We have a small mammal who is just
Going through the cord forest.
cord forest.
Okay.
And our last question comes from Latosh.
No, we have 2 more questions, ladies and gentlemen. This is how our relationship goes. Doesn't always listen.
Listening is, I have one more question on my paper.
There you go. Our dog is rummaging.
Okay. Latasha Doyle asks.
Also, this is kind of awesome because these questions were asked actually before these folks became Wandering Aimfully members, which is cool.
How do you manage variable...
Also, shout out Latasha. What's up?
Latasha, what's up? How do you manage variable incomes since you are both not traditionally employed, which I really like this question. I tend to find that mingling finances is better when you have variable incomes because you are able to balance out the lack of predictability with somebody else. Like, I remember when we were...
just slowly walk. Our dog is just so... This is the slowest he has ever walked in his life.
Meandering around the house, dragging his paws on the hardwood floor. So it's just like...
But our dog has never walked slower.
Absolutely, yeah. What I was going to say is there was a time when our businesses were separate, but our finances were together. So when I was doing Made by Bird or whatever, and if you had like, you know, a speaking gig come through or something, and I was having an off month on sales, that could balance out. Or if I had a big course launch, that could...
Or you had a couple courses that ended up on AppSumo, which was a really nice chunk of change when those things got paid out.
They would pay out, yeah.
And so I think to answer Latasha's question, really the most important thing is setting that budget from the beginning so you understand what your expenses are every single month on an average. And so that you can really project out and know, like, am I going to be making enough money over the next couple months to cover my expenses? If I'm not, I need to make some changes. I need to figure out how to make more money. I need to figure out how to spend less money. Both of those are the equation that you want to go for together to make the most and maximum impact with finances.
And just the last thing I'll add is when you do that with a partner and you both have variable income, it also allows you to make different business decisions based on if you know that person has, let's say, an income stream that is somewhat predictable or a course that you know is going to do well, you can maybe afford to take a little bit more of a risk on a project that you aren't sure is going to bring in money. And we did that a lot where it was like, okay, I know that you're set on this one, like an AppSumo payout or something like that for the month of October. So maybe that's when I'm going to launch my experimental monthly membership magazine or whatever.
And truthfully, that is why Wandering Aimfully exists as it does. And it's why we've created a monthly membership program. And it's why we've basically tried to combine everything together, is because it gives us that consistent revenue every single month.
Predictability.
And then if we want, once we meet our enough goals, which we're setting for ourselves and we're trying to hit in the next year, then we can do anything else we want. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So
he thought this would also be a good time just to play with some flamingo.
our dog, he's just rummaging around, and that's fine. All right. So last question here, and then we're going to do, we Googled that for you.
Oh, we Googled it.
Last question comes from Pam. Hello, Pam.
Pam.
Laguna, would you say? I don't think I've ever said Pam's last name. Laguna.
Also a Wandering Aimfully member.
At Pam Laguna, 2 L's if you want to look her up. She's super creative, by the way. Not that all these people aren't creative, but Pam's like, she is creative for her job. She said, do you have a personal budget on top of your joint budget?
No.
And I think that this...
We kind of answered this. Plaxico is like so bored with our finance conversation. He's like, I can't handle this anymore.
Everyone is riveted, Plaxico.
Yeah,
Stop.
riveted.
Stop.
Plaxico, it's not time. Thank you.
It's just going to be...
Jason put his toy in the bed and he got it out.
Yeah.
But
there it is. There it is. I actually am going to leave this in because I want everyone to just have a realistic look at what it means to work from home, to try and get things like this done. Like, oh, how do you guys just set up your podcast recording setup with 3 cameras and 2 microphones, and Carol has shingles and it's a little bit hot in here and the lighting keeps changing like crazy, and your dog just all of a sudden wants to play with his flamingo.
This is like the time of day where he likes to play. So
It is.
It's really the human's fault.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so getting back to Pam's question.
To Pam's question, I feel answered this a little bit, which is we don't.
Yeah.
We have we have categories of spending, like shopping or health and personal care, things that you would consider personal expenditures, but they're joint budgets.
And I will say, like, just for one quick example that I think is really fun to bring up is, and I think this happens in lots of couples, lots of relationships, is shopping for clothes. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of just random, I'm going to go buy stuff and I'm at Target, and you go in for toilet paper, you end up with $600 worth of things, as you do. But you can feel guilt about shopping, and especially clothes shopping. And we have been down this road a couple times. And what we finally decided was we typically buy clothes twice a year. It's about $1,000 total for each of us, so $500 each, basically.
Like, we're not those that spend a couple $100 bucks a month every month.
No, it's usually 2 times a year.
We like to buy in bulk
because we don't own that many clothes, so we wear through them.
Yeah.
So what we found is that if we go shopping in spring and we go shopping in the fall, those are our 2 big kind of shopping things. But we have the budget together. And then what we found, so we were cool with that. Like, we set up this monthly budget. But then we found that for you, it was good to have the basic stuff, and that's what you shop for.
And I do replenish, and I sort of have like a capsule wardrobe situation.
But, and as a man, I did not relate to this. As just a person who doesn't really care that much about fashion. Like, I like to look good in clothes, but it doesn't really do anything for me. You preferred to have like a wardrobe that was new and different and unique, but we didn't want to spend money on the clothes. So we found Le Tote, which is a clothes renting company, essentially. They send you a box. You can get, I think yours is like the unlimited boxes per month, which is $100 per month. So it actually works out to, in a year, $1,000. And this has become, I think, one of the best things that you've done for your wardrobe, because you can get a box, you pick out all your stuff, you get this fun jewelry and tops and blouses.
I get the feeling of like a shopping spree, like new stuff, and to like pair with basics, and because a lot of my staples are like basic pieces, so it makes me feel like I can have creative expression with my wardrobe, but I'm not buying something and then falling out of love with it in 3 months and it sits in my closet and I never wear it again.
Yeah. And so I just think that's a really good example of, I was excited for you to have that.
Exactly.
$100 per month was not breaking the bank because of how we separate out our shopping. Our shopping is very fixed for the most part, unless it's something that comes up that we agree on, we talk about. So yeah, I just think things like that, where you can find some personal satisfaction with each other, also really helps to not feel like you have to have a personal budget for things.
And also, if you're feeling guilty about your shopping, ask yourself if it's guilt based on your like partner putting that on you, or if it's guilt because you don't need these things and you know you won't wear them.
Or third category, it's guilt that you think because your partner's judging you, but you haven't actually asked them if they're judging you.
Or guilt that you think society is putting on you, but
oh my gosh, there's so much guilt.
so much
Don't have
guilt.
guilt. You're fine.
You're
It's
fine.
Don't
unless
have
you
guilt.
are putting it on credit cards and you don't have the money to pay for
Then
it,
don't
and
do
then
that.
don't do that.
Don't do that. Okay, I think I want to wrap up commingling finances with one final thing, which is just essentially our idea of how our money flows, because we talked about it a little bit at the beginning,
Sure.
but I think it'd be fun to bookend with this.
Sure.
So we have our main business, Wandering Aimfully, but we also have a couple other business things. We have some other courses and books and other stuff that provides money. But basically the idea is it all funnels in, yes, through our two separate business accounts, but it's one lump sum of money that we look at in a spreadsheet. And so we have a spreadsheet, and every month we total up all of these things and we go, here is the amount of income that we've made as a
Correct.
household.
Correct.
So it's working together. So
Correct.
I'm saying this in case anybody's sitting here going, I don't do anything.
How does this work?
Just tell me how you guys are doing this.
Yeah.
So we look at everything together. We have our budget.
Wait, can I say something that's important?
Sure, if
The
it's
way
important.
the way that stuff flows. So if you think of this whole thing like a machine, and the two kind of like funnels that catch money coming in are my business bank account and your
Yeah.
business bank account. But what happens is that money will just stay there if you never do anything with it. So we have minimums
Right.
for each one of those business bank accounts. I think
Yours is as low as $1,500.
as low as $1,500 I keep in that business account to pay for business expenses
times.
At all times. Yours is more like $3,500.
Yeah.
And so that's our like line that we don't go below that. So we keep that money there, and any excess over those lines, we flow that into our household account.
And then the idea is, so we have all of our income in that spreadsheet, and we actually use an Airtable for this. And then you have all of your expenses as well
Yes.
in that as a separate sheet, and those get all added up every single week. We do them, and we have categories for everything.
Correct.
And eventually, I think we're going to write a full article on how we manage our money. And
we
all
have
that stuff.
categories with budgets
Yep.
for each.
Yep. And so then you basically go, okay, I made this much income, I had this much expenses, this many expenses. Here's what's either left over or what's owed, and I either need to, hey, come on, man, come on, bad decisions. He's trying to go through not
Just
a good
the
area.
most corded area of the setup. Our dog is trying to traverse that, and it's not going well.
So you have either positive money or you have negative money, or you're breaking even. And a lot of times we do break even. A lot of times we
Yeah,
do
sometimes.
make less money than we thought, and sometimes we make more. And then we have, as we talked about at the very beginning, we have this external bank account, which becomes our basically like our savings account. So anything that's over or what we need to pay in taxes gets transferred into that account.
Correct.
And so the idea is money comes in through businesses. Business money flows into our joint account. We pay our bills, we do all of our expenses, all our things, and then anything over that goes into our savings account or our tax paying, or what it used to be called is our debt crusher, because we got out of debt.
That was how we paid our
using
debt.
that account.
And truthfully, if we're doing really well, our goal is always to transfer 30% of what we make in a week over to the savings account.
Yeah, and that's kind of changing because with Wandering Aimfully and our recurring money, we now are going to have more predictable income, so it'll be
Right.
much easier to do that. But as of right now, that's kind of our goal. We don't always hit it. This year has been tough to hit it because we've
Exactly.
been building a new business. But last year it was much easier to hit that because we were doing well and we didn't have any debt or anything, so it was nice.
Yeah.
But it is an ebb and flow, and I want to point that out too. Like you don't ever, at least I haven't seen it, set it and forget it.
Right.
With your budget, with your finances and your planning and your spreadsheets and all that stuff, it's something you have to look at constantly because it will change and you will need to manage it.
And I love doing our weekly budget meeting, which maybe we'll do.
Do you love it?
I don't love it, but I love that we do it because it also is an opportunity. I think very few couples set an opportunity for them to discuss big issues in their relationship.
On a constant basis.
That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
like it usually you're talking about big things in your relationship when there's a fight or when there's a
Right.
catalyst or when there's an impasse, and all of a sudden you find yourself in this conversation that's about this bigger things. So it's always sort of set off by like not a negative situation, but like a problem.
Yep.
And by having this weekly budget meeting, yes, we talk about money, but inevitably we talk about values, we reconnect, like we talk about the bigger things in our relationship. And it's sort of a standing meeting in order to like reconnect. And it sounds silly, but I really do think that that goes a long way in the health of a relationship.
Totally. And you made me think of another thing. I know we want to wrap up here, but it just made me think of another
We're
thing.
long-winded.
We were buying a Tesla Model 3, which 2 years ago, we made the commitment to do that, and we started kind of saving up a little bit on the side and kind of creating this little Tesla fund. But we would talk about it almost every week and go, is this still something we want to do? Can we afford this? And there were many weeks when we were like, I think if we got the email today, we would not buy it. We would ask for our money back because we don't have the money to do it.
Yeah.
And then we got into a better place, and then we got into like conversation. We got excited about it. Our car started to feel like it was getting a little bit older. So it just felt good. But again, it's that type of discussion where it doesn't come up all of a sudden out of nowhere and go, hey, let's buy a Tesla. And you broadside the other person in your relationship.
Right. Not to mention.
Blindside them? Broadside them? Blind
Both?
something? Don't side people. Don't broad or blind or side them.
Don't
Any of those
side
three
them.
words. Don't do it.
Also important there to touch on something that we mentioned throughout the episode is that cars, speaking of like the clothes thing that you don't really understand, cars are a thing that you love, that it was hard for me to understand why you'd pay so much money for a car.
Right.
And I didn't understand that that was a thing that brought you immense joy, and you love taking care of it, and you love driving it, and you're the person who drives 90% of the time, 95% of the time in our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so the constant communication gave us an opportunity for me to come around to understanding, even if it wasn't a value of mine, to understand why it was a value of yours. And that's what I mean about like finding a way to meet in the middle.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, we hope this episode was helpful. But before we finish it, we got to talk about Google and stuff for you. Is it on my phone?
I think it's brought up.
Okay.
But I already know the answer.
I'm going to hand Caroline my phone in case she needs it. So if this is your first time listening, we have a segment of our show called We Googled That For You. Caroline made an acronym, and it's WGUGTFE. WGTFE? It's
We're not sure.
It's not actually an acronym she made up. I made it up. She hates it. But I bring it up every episode because fun. So this week, this episode, you're going to bring me something. I may or may not know what it is. Most likely not. I'm going to try and give you an answer. That's how we do this around here. And then you're going to tell the folks at home or wherever they are what this is so that they can tell their friends and then they sound really cool.
A little tidbit. I don't know where this one came from. Totally random.
Okay.
But why do we have middle names?
Oh, man.
At least in American culture.
All right. Well, we have middle names because early on.
Earlier than now.
Like in the Crusades.
Oh.
Yeah, it was around the Crusades. They decided that there were just too many people named John. Inevitably. And so you're in the Crusades, as you are, and it's terrible. It's a terrible time.
Hard times.
And then all these Johns were dying. And I don't mean that a Johns is like a...
Law and Order SVU type.
Right.
Yeah.
Not like that kind of John. But all these guys named John were dying. These kids even named John were dying in the Crusades.
Yeah.
Hello, train. And
salute. Did you salute?
Oh, I didn't. Sorry. Hello. All these Johns were dying, and they couldn't identify whose John was which. So, like, a mom would go, like, "Where's my John?" And they're like, "Isn't that your John?" This is really, as I'm saying this out loud, John was a great general name,
and then it took a turn.
Yeah, but so then they were like, "Oh, hey, we need to start. If you have kids, give them a middle name, so then we'll know John Paul or John Scott or John
Scott
Jingleheimer Schmidt." You'll know whose is yours.
John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt.
Right.
That's a very good
Pretty
guess.
close?
So close. No. None of that is true. I don't even think... No.
It wasn't the Crusades. That's probably the most...
No, but you did say Crusades, and there is a nod to the Middle Ages in here, which I just assume is the same thing, and I don't think it's the same thing.
Yeah, it is.
The Middle Ages?
The Crusades brought us out of the Middle Ages.
Do you know that for a fact?
No, I totally made that up. I have no idea.
Leave a comment below. Are the Crusades in the Middle Ages?
They're listening on a podcast.
Is it two different?
There's
is it
no
like
place
the
to comment.
Jurassic period and the prehistoric
There's no place to comment.
period?
They're listening on a podcast. On their phone. They're in their
You
car.
don't know that. They
Send
could be
us-
watching the video.
You call us and tell us what's going on.
Can you send us a postcard? Can you fax us? Okay, so
Middle names came from.
Middle names came from. So first of all, in ancient Rome is like kind of when it was early documented. Having multiple names was just an honor for the most important people, like Gaius Julius Caesar.
Got it.
Okay. But the fad basically died out for a while. And then in the 1700s, it was brought back up in
Crusades.
Western cultures. Is that the Crusades? Stop.
No idea.
Stop pretending you know what the Crusades are or were when they were. You do not know.
I don't know how, when, where, why.
Do you know what the Crusades were?
War.
Holy wars.
Holy war.
They were holy wars.
Cool.
Most wars are holy wars.
Not cool, but you know what I mean? Like, I feel cool
just
that
like
it was.
about
Yeah.
that stuff. Okay. So in the 1700s, when aristocrats started giving their children lavishly long names to indicate their place in society. So you see like royalty has like a bunch of names, right? But then, similarly, lengthy Spanish and Arabic names adopt paternal or maternal names from previous generations to trace the individual's family tree. I found this out. That's pretty cool. I actually think, I'm not going to say which culture it is because I'm not sure. But I do believe that in some, I want to say Hispanic cultures, sometimes the hyphen is so that you include the maternal last surname.
That's interesting.
To keep that as a part of the name. If that's wrong, correct me. I'm happy to be corrected.
With a postcard.
I think
it's good.
No,
there's more.
There's more.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Bonus.
But then the three-name structure used today began in the Middle Ages when Europeans were torn between giving their child a saint's name or a common family name. So they would give like a saint, like a holy name, and then a family name.
St. Thomas Aquinas.
Yep. And then bringing it all the way up to like American culture, it branched to America as immigrants arrived. I think this is interesting. So adopting a trio of labels became a way of aspiring to a higher social class. And then by the Civil War, it was customary to name your child whatever you liked. Like they just were like, forget about all that stuff. And middle names had started to become more or less official by World War I when the U.S. enlistment form became the first official government document to include a space for them. So then it was like, oh, people are doing this. We're just going to, but the reason I bring this up, you may find this interesting, you may not, but it's something that we take for granted, like so easily. Like, okay, yeah, we all have middle names in America.
Yeah.
But you're like, why?
Yeah.
When?
I mean, I think I gave the answer. Also, this is a fun. I don't know if you saw this tweet that I had a little while ago.
I don't follow you.
That I wanted to.
I'm kidding,
that I wanted to get rid of my middle name and replace it with an emoji.
You keep saying this, and I think you think it's funny and cool, but I don't like it.
Why not?
I think it's very silly and very not stupid. It's stupid.
Your brain said not stupid, but your mouth said stupid. So I think inside you think it's a great idea. Also,
why would you do that?
Why not?
Can I tell you what? You're the
my middle name sucks.
I hear that, but guess what? Also sucks being a weirdo with an emoji for a middle name.
Why?
Here's why you're
on a form. I could draw it every time. Write your full name, please,
Does anybody
Jason.
have a yellow marker?
And then I'm drawing the llama emoji that's coming.
Here's the weirdest. A llama emoji's coming.
Yeah.
Here's the weirdest thing about you.
Yeah.
You hate so many things about like millennial culture or like newfangled trendy things. But then you go and completely reverse all of that and you're like, oh, and by the way, I'm going to name myself. Like that's something that a stupid millennial would do. Don't do that.
Aren't you a millennial?
Yeah, but you're not. You're not allowed.
I think at heart I am.
Get out of our club.
Not when I have my dancing girl middle name emoji.
Okay, now we're talking.
That'd be fun. I want to do it.
No, you don't.
I want to do it.
I want to do it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening to our show.
We love you.
We really appreciate it.
I actually love you.
Yeah. Oh, we don't know who you are, but
But the fact that you've listened this far means you've earned my love.
If you want to support our show, you'll notice we don't have sponsors on the show, but we did actually mention a couple people who were wandering Aimfully members. If you haven't checked it out, we do have a membership. It opens for enrollment every month-ish. We only have 30 spots every month. You can join awesomely talented people who are chasing down their dreams, their life goals, and they're establishing what their enough numbers are, their enough business is like. And they're really just working through everything, supporting each other, inspiration. And then there's a lot of resources we have, software and other things, courses and stuff that we've learned and we teach because it's stuff that we know that we've done. And you can get access to that if you go to wanderingaimfully.com/join.
Not to mention, you get to hang out with us every day in Slack and awesome, cool people and see Jason use his use of emojis, being the millennial that he is.
I will say that our emoji game is pretty strong.
In the Slack. Yeah, it really is. And really we love helping people reach their goals, like Jason said, and we would love to have you join us as well.
And if that's not a good fit for you, then just leaving a review on iTunes or on whatever podcast thing you're listening to that may have a review system, that's super helpful for us. We would really appreciate it.
And if that's not a good fit for you, just share the show.
Yeah.
Just tell a friend.
Yeah, just literally post on Facebook, Wandering Aimfully, the show. Don't link.
Don't link. And people are like, what?
What's going on?
Google?
All right. Thanks so much for listening. Bye. All right. We're going to do an intro.
Yerp.